It may be 0 degrees outside, but we are still going to host the barbecue cookout this Saturday, and we are going to make some money. In this video, I'm going to show you every single one of my daily fantasy plays that I have for UFC 323 that I have personally locked in, that I've sent out to the premium members, that we have made a ton of money on, not just this year, but the year before and the year prior. And once we've done that, I'm then going to go through every single fight on the card, and I'm going to give you one DFS play for every single fight if I had to choose one based on where the lines are at right now today, which is Thursday. Let's hop into the video, which always has to go with the recap. We have to start with the recap. Last week or 2 weeks ago, UFC Qatar, we did lose one unit on DFS. Wasn't a great day for DFS, but it was a great day for the other bets, unfortunately. But we were very close once again to hitting the big 20x payout, only off by 3 significant strikes if Alex Perez got submitted a little bit earlier. Overall, I actually thought the reads were pretty good. We went 1-1 on 2 of the slips, which, if you pair the others together, then it's profit. But, it is what it is. We made a ton of money this year, and since 2024, on 2-pick entries alone, we're positive 136.51 units. So a -1 unit week doesn't hurt us at all. I promise you that. We've also hit some big slips, just like this one on the last pay-per-view, which was UFC 322. So very recent 20x hit. We hit the 100x payout on UFC 314 this year. Also hit a 35x payout. That was at UFC Perth pretty recently as well. And if you tailed all of the long shot DFS plays that I've given you this year, and you put 1 unit on them, you would be up 197.44 units for a 219% ROI. An unreal stat that I could throw out there. It is literally, it's true. I mean, I can't fake that. All right, that's what it is. But like I said, you had to be tailing all the long shot DFS plays, which some of you probably have, some of you probably haven't. So insane run that we've been on. Let's cap it off with 2 cards to go, starting with UFC 323. Let's look at the Underdog Fantasy plays. If you don't have Underdog Fantasy just yet, you should go download it. If you do, and you're in one of these highlighted states, use code HeyJive, play $5, get $100 in bonus funds, and you'll also get a gimme pick. Everybody that signs up with the code HeyJive is going to get a gimme pick. It might not be for UFC, but it might be some NFL gimme pick. You get a free pick, essentially. A risk-free pick that you can add to any entry. You can also scan the QR code here on the screen if you're watching on the TV, or if you're watching on a monitor or laptop, whatever makes it easier for you. Otherwise, there's a link down in the description to sign up on Underdog. And once you've done that, lock these plays in. All right, we're going 2-pick entry first. Muhammad Naimov, lower than 34.5 significant strikes. He's not a high-volume guy. He's probably going to need to wrestle in this matchup. We got upside for grappling. We got upside for an early finish. Myron Santos, very good defensive striker, keeps his range very well, and Naimov just doesn't really throw a whole lot out there. So lower than 34.5. We're pairing that with Edson Barboza. There's a lot of upside for early finish in this matchup. Barboza seems to be towards the end of his career. Jalen Turner, also very fragile, can get finished early. So we're playing that one for the early upside. The number is just pretty high, for a fight that is probably going to end early. So we're pairing those together for a 3x payout. We'll go to the 5-pick entry to win 20x here. This is what it is. We got Barboza, lower than 38.5. We're going Chris Duncan, lower than 18.5. 11 of McKinney's 12 fights, I believe, his opponent has gone lower than 18.5 significant strikes. I think that hits again. They're probably going to grapple. McKinney's probably going to grapple. Duncan might grapple. It's probably not going to last very long. Makes a lot of sense. Manuel Torres, lower than 24.5. He's going to knock him out early if he wins. If he doesn't, he's going to get put on his back, and he's probably going to get grappled up. So if he's on his back, he's not going to be landing significant strikes. Lower than 24.5 there. Upside for early finish. Ton of grappling upside. Makes a lot of sense. Bogdan Guskov, lower than 37.5. The guy's a knockout puncher, doesn't really throw kicks. He's more of a striking with his hands only type of fighter against the guy in Jan Blachowicz that has pretty solid striking defense, especially to the head. Now, if Bogdan's going to win, he's probably going to knock him out. So we got some early upside for there, taking the lower. And then we also have some upside for Jan Blachowicz to mix in some grappling, mix in some cage push, which Bogdan Guskov has been that's his weakness. We've seen it in a lot of other fights where guys are taking him down Guys are pushing him up against the cage. He loses minutes, loses fights there. So early upside, grappling upside like that for Gruskov. And then we got Henry Cejudo lower than 49.5 against Peyton Talbot. He's going to be a lot shorter than Peyton Talbot. He's also probably going to have to wrestle to win this fight. And we got an upside for some early finish. And Peyton Talbot, in his last 2 fights, has kind of been lulled into some grappling exchanges. So if that grappling does extend, they're not going to be throwing significant strikes. And Cejudo's probably not going to be landed. So there's your 5-pick entry to win 20x on Underdog right there. And then we got the 8-pick to win 120x. We're adding Nazim Sadikov lower than 50.5. Every single one of Farazziem's opponents have hit this, and I think it's 9 fights. So 9 of 9 fights for Farazziem. His opponents have gone lower than 50.5. Karine Silva lower than 35.5. She's hit this in 4 of her 5 UFC fights, or maybe 5 of her 6. I think there was only 1 fight where she went over this, and that was a fight that she lost. But that was also a fight where against Viviane Araujo, who's pretty damn hittable. Macy Barber doesn't absorb a ton of significant strikes. It's less than 3. There's a lot of upside for grappling here. Karine Silva, terrible takedown defense. If she wants to grapple, she will pull guard to grapple. So this fight could play out on the ground. This fight could end early. And on the feet, I don't think Karine Silva is a very high-volume striker. And then we're going to add in, was that it? Yeah, that's it. We went all over the rest of them. But 8 picks, wins 120x on Underdog. I want to hit that before the end of the year. I think we can hit that. All lowers. We're going all lowers this week, which I'll show you later. But all lowers, or maybe I could show you in the next slide. All lowers was that 100x payout that we hit earlier this year. So feel pretty good about all the lowers on this card. And I think we can cash that 120x. Once again, use code HeyJive on Underdog to get the promo bonus play. $5, get $100 in bonus funds. Link down in the description below, or you could scan the QR code on the screen. You'll also get a gimme pick, probably in the NFL is what I'm assuming it's going to be, but it'll pop up in your app when you download it. All right, before we get into the rest of the 2-pick entries, I got to let you know, if you want all my bets, jump in the Homofight Picks Premium membership. Use code HOF for a 7-day free trial. That's where you're going to get my straight bets, my parlays, and my props as well, not just the DFS plays. I got the other bets in there as well. So if you want to join there, use code HOF for a 7-day free trial. On the year, I'm positive 78.42 units, and you'll also get my boy Nolan's bets in there as well. He's on a nice 7-week winning streak, positive 42.84 units. As you can see, the last 3 years we've been profitable. We were up over 135 units in 2024. We're getting closer to that for the end of 2025. So hopefully we can surpass what we did last year. And that's also where you're going to get the DFS plays early. I make this video later in the week, but as you can tell, if you go into the app, the lines aren't going to be the same. If you want to get the lines relatively closer to what I get them to, you got to join the Homofight Picks Premium membership. Of course, I'm providing a ton of value with these DFS plays. So if you want to get the best value out of it, you should probably join up and you get those plays early. I sent these out on December 1st, which was Monday, I believe, if I do my math correct. I'll give you the explanation. I'll also give you the play till lines, and I'll give you a couple alternates as well. That's where you're going to get the most value. But I do this video for free because I believe we have a huge edge in this DFS angle, and I want everyone to be able to access that. And more often than not, the bumps don't really play a factor, but if you do want to get as close as you can to what I get on the lines, you're going to want to join the Homofight Picks Premium membership with the link down in the description below. Use code HOF for a 7-day free trial. Now we'll hop into the sleeper picks this week. You can use code HeyJive for a deposit bonus up to $100. Hit slips like that. Let's check them out. We got 3 2-pick entries this week. We got Chris Duncan, lower than 18.5. We got Manuel Torres, lower than 25.5. We played these on sleeper because we're getting a better payout. On Underdog, the payout will be 3x your money. On sleeper, we're getting 3.11x our money. Times our money is what the X means. But obviously, if you're going to get a better payout, you're going to want to play it where you get the better payout. And that's why you have to have multiple apps so you can get the better payout, you can get the better line. So that's why we use multiple of these apps. And that's why I'm telling you to use sleeper, because usually they got better payouts. Slip number 2, Sadikov Farazziem. Sadikov lower, 50.5. Karine Silva lower than 35.5 for a 3.13 6x payout. And then we got Guskov and Cejudo. So 2 prelims paired together there, and then a main card right there, 3.1x, 2-pick entry right there. And we got Cejudo at 50.5 instead of 49.5 like we did on Underdog. So there's your 2-pick entries. Download Sleeper, link down in the description below. Use code HeyJov. Get that deposit bonus up to $100. Lock those plays in, and we'll make some money. Now, as promised, for the pay-per-view week, I'm going to give you one play for every single fight on the card. First fight is going to be Myron Santos versus Naimov. If you watched the video before and you didn't just skip to this part, I played Muhammad Naimov lower than 34.5 significant strikes. I believe his line is at like 26 or 27.5 right now. I still think that could hit, but I do like the higher number here on Myron Santos at 47.5 a little bit better than I do than Naimov at 27.5 because I think it could be low volume. I do think there's upside for an early finish, and I do think the grappling could play a factor here. So the higher number on Myron Santos at 47.5 is better to me than Naimov at 27.5, but the number I played on Naimov at 34.5, I did like better than, the Santos side. So right now, I would play Santos at 47.5 for the lower over Naimov at 27.5. Moving on. Mansour Abdulmalik at 21.5. We're going to go higher here. We're going higher here because I don't really think Tricoli's a bitch, man. But he is very hittable. He's very hittable, and I think Abdulmalik's probably going to poke away at him and like kind of try to wear him down and then pounce on him. I don't really see him going in there and just like swinging a big overhand trying to knock him out with one punch. He hasn't really done that. So the number where it is, Abdulmalik's probably got to finish him within the first 1 or 2 exchanges for him to go lower. And if he does that, so be it. But if he doesn't, then he's going over. So the number at 21.5, I think he's gone over this in all of his UFC fights. I think you got to play the over at 21.5 or the higher on Underdog there. Moving on. Ibo Aslan lower than 21.5. I was debating playing this, but if Ibo Aslan does find an early KO, he could go over. I mean, he's not like a one-shot knockout type of guy. He's kind of a guy that puts a bunch of combinations together and knocks you out. But Ibo at 21.5, that's still what I would play on this fight, lower than 21.5, because the fight could end early. Baranowski could get his wrestling going, and then Ibo's on bottom, and the fight could end there. But I didn't play it officially, but that's what I would play on that fight, lower than 21.5 for Aslan. Barbosa at 38.5 is what I played for the lower there. I think he's down to 28.5, which I still think is probably good, but I'm going to throw in Jalen Turner lower than 41.5 here because the reason why I played the lower for Barbosa was the early finish upside in the fight. And I do think there's early finish upside for both guys, but mostly for Jalen Turner to get it. But if Jalen Turner does get it, does he go higher than 41.5? Probably not. So I like the lower there for Jalen Turner as well. And if you don't want to deal with the 10 bump difference in significant strikes for Edson Barbosa, I think Jalen Turner lower than 41.5 is good as well. Bruno Ferreira lower than 40.5. Now, this one's either going to look beautiful or it's going to look terrible because Marvin Vettori's chin has historically been amazing, and he's a guy that can take a lot of damage. So if Bruno Ferreira is going to go in there and just try to damage the shit out of Marvin Vettori, he could soar over this. But I do think there's a lot of ways this could go under. That's why I'm going to tell you this as my player. Lower than 40.5 for Bruno Ferreira. You got upside for an early finish. Bruno Ferreira's got some power in his hands. Vettori's been hurt a ton. But also, Vettori could take him down. Vettori could knock out Bruno Ferreira, as crazy as it sounds. There's upside for an early finish. There's also upside for a lot of grappling here. And Bruno Ferreira's not really a high-volume striker. He's kind of a guy that works his way around the outside and then hits you with one shot. And if he has you hurt with that one shot, he'll follow it up with some shots. So he could go over here, but if I had to choose, I would play Bruno Ferreira lower than 40.5. He hasn't gone over this in any of his fights in the UFC. And it's a big step up in competition as well. So lower than 40.5 is for Bruno. This was a tough one because the bump is now at 43.5 for Sadikov. But if I had to choose a play on this fight, I think I would still go with lower than 43.5 for Sajikov because Faraziem doesn't absorb a lot of significant strikes, man. He only absorbs about 1.5 significant strikes per minute. I do think there's upside for a finish here. There's also upside for some grappling going on in this fight as well. So That's where I would play. I played it at 50.5, at 43.5. I still think it's the best play on the fight. I would still play it personally. You know, if he goes over, he's going to go over. That means the fight probably went to a decision or it went deep into the third round. So that is what it is. But we're playing this for the upside of the early finish and also the upside of Faraziem's striking defense just being that good. Macy Barber, higher than 1.5 takedowns. We played Karine Silva lower than 35.5. I think she's down to like 28.5 or so. I still think it's okay, but at this point, I'd probably rather go Macy Barber higher than 1.5 takedowns because it is a women's MMA fight. It is favored to go the distance, but is Macy Barber going to wrestle is the question. If she does want to wrestle, she should be able to get takedowns at ease. At ease. Karine Silva has 11% takedown defense. There's a reason we played Karine Silva lower than 35.5. It's been bumped. So I'm going to give you a little bit of an alternate here with Macy Barber higher than 1.5 takedowns because if she wants the takedowns, they'll be free. She can get them at any point, and she's only got to get 2 in a 15-minute fight. So there's my little alternate for you after the bump on Karine Silva. Terrence McKinney lower than 16.5. We played Chris Duncan lower than 18.5, but I also think McKinney lower than 16.5 is good. I was kind of debating which one I did want to play officially. I went with Duncan because I don't think McKinney has, much durability. If Duncan hits him with something big, he probably could get knocked out. But Duncan does have some durability. Like if McKinney hits him with something big and like stuns him, he's not going to just fold. He's a tough guy. So if he does hit him with something big, McKinney could, rattle off 15, 20 punches in a row if he really has him that hurt. So that's why we went with Duncan. But in all reality, I do think McKinney is probably going to grapple here. So I think McKinney probably not going to be landing a lot of significant strikes. So I like the lower there for McKinney at 16.5 as a little bit of an alternate with the Duncan side because that's been bumped down to like 14.5 or something like that. But I think both are good. Fight ends early. I think they're probably going to grapple. Grant Dawson versus Manuel Torres. We're going with Manuel Torres lower than 19.5. I still think it's the best play on the fight. You could maybe get Q with like Grant Dawson going higher on takedowns, but I think the fight has a lot of potential to end early. So I'm still going to stick with Manuel Torres lower than 19.5. We played it at 25.5, but in all reality, like the difference between 19.5 and 25.5 really isn't going to look that big. If Torres knocks him out, it's going to be early. And if he doesn't, then he's probably not landing a lot of significant strikes. So Torres probably finishes with like 15 or lower if he knocks him out early. But if he doesn't, he's probably going to end up with 30, 40, something like that. So I don't really see the bump playing a huge factor there. So I'm going to still play Manuel Torres at 19.5. Bogdan Guskov lower than 29.5 against Jan Blachowicz. We played him at 37.5. 29.5 I still think is the best play on the fight because if the fight is going to end early, it's going to end early. He's probably going to go lower than 20.5. If it extends, then he's probably going to go over. But if it does extend, we leave ourselves some grappling upside for Jan Blachowicz to get on top to where Guskov isn't landing significant strikes. You could maybe get cute and take Jan, but Jan's also a good leg kicker. He could rack up significant strikes that way. Guskov, not much of a kicker, more of a puncher. And if he can't punch the head of Jan Blachowicz, then he's not going to be landing significant strikes. So lower than 29.5 for Guskov still. Cejudo, lower than 42.5. Still going to, keep my take on that one. We played him at 50.5. He's down 8. Is it going to make that big of a difference? Probably not. Probably not. If Cejudo's going to wrestle here, he's not a guy that lands a lot of ground and pound. And if they're going to strike and they strike for 15 minutes, then yeah, maybe he could get between 42.5 and 50.5. But what are the odds of that? It's pretty slim. So I like the lower than 42.5 still. I was maybe going to say lower on takedowns for Cejudo, but Talbot, like he could get taken down really quickly and then just pop back up. So that's why I don't really like it. So lower than 42.5 for Cejudo's looked good. Lower than 2.5 for Tatsuro Taira on takedowns against Brandon Moreno. Brandon Moreno's takedown defense is it's at like 60-some%, but I don't really think Tatsuro Taira's wrestling is all that great. He's a guy that will kind of whiff on the takedown. And I don't want to say whiff, but he'll fail the takedown, but then just get to your back and get to your back from the standing position. So I don't really think Brandon Moreno is going to come in here and just get easily taken down by Tatsuro Taira. And if he does, then he's probably getting his back taken. And if he's getting his back taken, that means he's probably not getting another takedown in that round. So I don't really see Taira getting I don't see him getting 3 takedowns. I guess maybe he could get 1 a round, but I think Brandon Moreno knows, if I lose to this guy, it's because he's taking me down. So I think he's going to do everything in his power to not get taken down, to not give up his back, and then I think they're probably going to strike it out. I gave Moreno as an alternate higher than 44.5 significant strikes out to the premium members. It's up to 49.5 now. It's getting a little bit dicey there. It's getting a little bit dicey because in a 3-round fight, he could land 50, and then it's cutting it pretty close. But lower than 2.5 takedowns for Taira, I think is still good. Pantoja, lower than 3.5 takedowns against Joshua Van. Joshua Van has got 80% takedown defense. The thing is, we haven't really seen him against a really good grappler, really good back taker. And if Pantoja is at the level of where we think he is, the fight could end early. The reason why I didn't want to touch the significant strikes here in a Josh Van fight is because when they are striking, they're probably going to be striking at a pretty high pace. And that means they're going to be landing a lot of significant strikes. I mean, Joshua Van versus Brandon Royval, they both landed over 200 significant strikes in a 3-round fight. So I do think the fight could end early, but on the feet, they're going to be exchanging a lot. It should be a very high-paced fight. If Pantoja gets his takedowns, it could be the end of the fight. And as the fight goes on, I don't really see Pantoja's offensive wrestling being as good as it is early on in the fight. So the line being at 3.5, I think is a lot of front-loaded takedowns that are going to come for Pantoja. And if he gets 3 within the first 2 rounds, rounds 3, 4, and 5, maybe he gets none. Or maybe we don't even need to go there and the fight ends early. So lower than 3.5 takedowns for Pantoja there. And in the main event, we're going with Merab higher than 107.5 takedowns. That would be crazy. 107.5 takedowns. 107.5 significant strikes in the main event. Reason why is because Petr Yan's takedown defense is that good. I don't see him getting 20 takedowns like he did against Corey Sandhagen. Yan's takedown defense is very good, and I think that takedown defense is going to force them to be in striking exchanges for a lot of the fight. The fight is favored to go the distance at near minus 400, so they're really expecting this to go 25 minutes, and if it does go 25 minutes, Merab set a career high in significant strikes against Petr Yan. Why? Because Petr Yan is a decently solid defensive striker, because he wears that high guard, and Merab is just able to pepper him with shots and just stay offensive. And if they're on the feet, Merab can land 30 plus a round. He can land 25 plus a round. And if he lands 25 plus a round, he clearly soars over 107.5 significant strikes. So I like that from Merab in the main event. That's going to do it for the video. Please hit the like button for me before you go. Let's cook these DFS apps this weekend, just like we have all year, just like we did last year. Let's keep her going, end the year strong. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already. Hopefully you appreciate the work that I put into this video and all the research that goes into these DFS plays. And let's make some coin, boys. Appreciate y'all. Till next time, Hey Job Picks.